Welcome to the seventh and final video of how to manage stress in the weight room. In the previous 6 videos, we've gone over everything when it comes to looking at the first variable when it comes to managing stress, the exercise. We looked at the primary exercises, the correctives, the throws, the plyometrics, and every variable within each one. Now, we're going to look at the other 4. We're going to look at weight, sets, reps, and tempo. Or in other words, volume. When we think about volume, we have 2 main components. We have rate of progression, and we have the actual volume that encompasses external load, sets, reps, and tempo. When we look at progression rates, we have the actual progression rate and the projected. As coaches, we all want to see athletes get to a specific benchmark, a specific bench press or a specific squat, or being able to maintain ability to produce force over more reps, just as a 5RM. But what is that progression into that? That's the key when we look at volume and how to know how much the athlete is doing and managing that from an athlete perspective. That's the projected. We have a projection in our minds of where the athlete should be in a specific time frame. The actual is what the athlete is actually doing. The actual actually takes into account sport training, conditioning, sleep, nutrition, all the variables that we know affect their actual training process. This doesn't mean our projected is useless. It just gives us a guideline. Hey, what better things as coaches can we do to help these athletes to stay on track and be as closely to the projected as possible? Because we know if the athlete is on that projected and is progressing on that same rate, we're going to be in a really good position. Here's the problem. When we don't look at the projected and we only look at the actual, we may see these huge fluctuations where 1 week they lift 3 times a week and they go as heavy as they can in each session, and then the next 2 weeks they're super down in weight because we allow them to be so in the moment and push themselves so hard in one specific week. Now we have 2 weeks that we're going backtracking. This is where having a projected volume or projected stress in the weight room is so critical to understand where the athlete is today and allow them to stair step their way into success. Now, the other component when we look at volume is the actual volume itself. We're going to look at external load. So when we think about external load, this is any weight that is external to the body. Could be a dumbbell, a barbell, a kettlebell, a machine. This is anything that the athlete is adding on to their own body weight or their own mental capacity to be able to make it harder. Now, we then look at sets, reps, and tempo. Sets is how many rounds we do of certain repetitions or how many reps that we do, whereas tempo is the duration at which we spend the most amount of time in an exercise. This allows us to know specifically what the athlete is doing from a volume perspective and putting that with the exercise to know, hey, is this athlete progressing the skill of the exercise or are we progressing the volume? This 5-variable approach now allows us to see a specific exercise within a very small scope. What we can do from now is take that exercise, look at the next exercise within a training session, accumulate everything that we do in a single training session, create a daily stress value, then being able to see that projected over a week, a month, and a year, and so on. And when we want to know is are athletes progressing, it's about how much are they progressing. In reality, we really want to see athletes progress 1 to 3% a week. We cannot look at exercises and strength and conditioning progression as this 10, 15, 20, 30, 40% jumps from week to week. We would rather have a 1% steady increase for 52 weeks than a monumental jump from 10% to 30%. Now we're down negative 5% because they're so fatigued because we didn't manage the workload from a projected standpoint to allow them to have success. I'm so glad you guys watched all 7 videos, and if you haven't, I would go back and watch all of these. And remember, systems drive success, so start building.